Chapter 51. A couple of hours before the operation. 2 weeks. It took us exactly that long to understand at least a little about the notes of Tobirama and Madara, which were handed over to me by the heads of as many as 2 clans. If I didn't have such a specialist as Bachan at my side, as well as access to the holy of holies of her clan, namely the laboratory of her grandfathers, I might not have been able to cope. Still, for the most part, I was a practitioner, and an intuitive practitioner, because the strength of my son Rikudo that I inherited allowed me to do this. Fortunately, most of the carriers were Irenans with a capital I, but in such precise operations I frankly floated. No, I could carry it out on bare reflexes, just as I once raised Kakashi-sensei's eyes in that world, but what next? One thing to recreate in the image and likeness of one's own dear, another matter slap on something that is foreign and make the body think that it is native and has never been transplanted. This is where the experience of Bachan came out, which, having discovered that I had mostly basic knowledge, not particularly going into details, dug into me worse than an Inuzuka Niken. But my knowledge grew with amazing speed, albeit somewhat one-sidedly. However, as Bachan affectionately promised me, this is only for now, but let's go on a journey. Judging by the blissfully rolling eyes, it's better for me to immediately run away to the summoning plane. However, these are all particulars that did not in the least interfere with our common work, and I already had the results of the genetic examination in my hands. My suspicions were justified. If I had blindly decided to make a circular exchange, no one would have been better off. No, their eyes matched each other, yet all Uchihas are quite closely related, but they would not have achieved true strength. My assumptions were confirmed by Madara's miraculously surviving work diary, or rather, what was able to be read in this scorched Talmud, where he said that transplanting his eyes to Azuna only accelerated his death. In general, it was decided to conduct a whole bunch of additional tests, which revealed that Itachi's eyes are ideal for Sasuke, but my fiancé's eyes are completely unsuitable for his brother, being ideal donor material for Shursui. In turn, the eyes of our phantom genius matched the eyes of Kagami-san, who turned out to be his father, and he, in turn, matched Itachi well. Not an ideal situation, of course, but much better than leaving them completely blind for life. In general, we carried out a bunch of checks, and most importantly, with the silent connivance of Fugaku-san, I could calmly ask Bachan for advice. Well, somehow I didn't believe that he didn't know who was helping me, he just couldn't ask for help himself. The clan would be indignant. But like this, when everyone knows, but there's no evidence, it's quite possible. True, this did not in any way affect the fact that the operation would be carried out by the Iraianans from the Uchiha clan under my strict guidance and periodic feeding with my chakra. Still, the reserve of most red-eyed people is not at all the same as that of Sasuke or Shursui. We generally keep quiet about me, but they have enormous experience and skills in neurosurgery and ophthalmology. The date of the operation has already been determined, the patients have been warned and given their consent. All that remains is to wait until nightfall and perform the operation. By the way, I wondered why wait for the night, and came across an interesting superstition. The Uchihas sincerely believed that under the rays of Tsukuyomi there was a greater chance of a successful outcome. A strange answer, for me the treatment time did not affect the result at all, but since it did not harm at all, why refuse? Let it be so, since it makes them feel better. Naruto, can I? There is a knock on the door of my room, and I look up from my thoughts, which I was immersed in as soon as I woke up, and realize that I have been staring at my scribbles for a long time. Yes, the door is open. I respond and look in surprise at Toussaint, frozen on the threshold. Did you want something, Toussaint? I'll carefully clarify that for the last couple of weeks we haven't had time to talk. I'm busy restoring control in the Uchihas, and Toussaint, as Hokage, is monitoring the construction and restoring the security of the village. By the way, for this article he had to pay our clan a tidy sum, while the other heads screamed. According to them, it turned out that since the Uzumaki were lucky enough to get a piece of land in Konoha, they should restore everything for free. Somehow they forgot whose brother Aji-san was, so he reminded them and remembered everything. He even pulled out old contracts almost from the time of Rikudo, and as a result, those who raised the high found themselves in a rather disadvantageous position, because they had a lot of debts to the Uzumaki, and the section of the quarter was located on land that was given to the Uzukage by Hashirama. Ruler Yuzushio, of course, has been dead for a long time, but the heirs walk the earth, which means the clan takes its place legally, and the generosity of the Konoha people has nothing to do with it. I then sincerely regretted that I could not attend that meeting. As soon as I imagine the expression on the face of Head Hyuga, I start to giggle. "Naruto, are you listening to me?" came right above my ear, causing me to almost jump. "Sorry, Toussan, I was lost in thought." I instantly apologized and looked in his direction with honest eyes, mentally trying to remember when he managed to close the doors and move so close to me. Now I'm a fool, completely relaxed, but what if it was an enemy? "What did you want? How are things going with the Uchihas?" Tiredly rolling his eyes, but realizing that this had no effect on me, Toussan clarified and thoughtfully looked around my room, in which not a trace remained of the previous order. Some crumpled pieces of paper or scrolls unfolded in certain places were lying everywhere. "No, but what did he want? I'm a creative person, everything should be at hand. Let him be glad that thanks to Kachan I don't have to carry my way here and there are no stubs anywhere." "True, see my room now, Sasuke." "Well, let's not talk about sad things. Many have heard about a perverted fantasy topic." This night, I shrugged in response to Toussan's reproachful look, who, after thinking a little, decided to stand. Anyway, the only place in the room that I could sit on, apart from the chair I occupied, was the bed, but even there was a mountain of scrolls lying around. "Eh?" He drawls and points to his eyes, and then gestures around my room with his hand. It's a rather funny gesture, but considering that one of our relatives is on duty outside the doors of my room, its use is understandable to me, as is Toussan's reluctance to talk about it out loud. "At least another week." I nod, showing that I perfectly understood his question, as well as the reason why he asked it that way. "Plus a week to get used to it and test your strength." I don't like Toussan's thoughtful look. I immediately remember that we repulsed the attack, but did not get rid of some problematic comrades. "Is this date accurate?" "Almost," I say gloomily and reach for the barrier seal prudently installed on the wall. "No, there is no one in the house except relatives, but it is better to keep some things a secret even from them." "Explain." Toussan immediately looks at me demandingly, nodding approvingly at my actions with the barrier. "Sasuke will come to his senses earlier. Besides, he has experience synchronizing with my chakra." I responded, choosing my words carefully. "Itachi and Shursui will also rise relatively quickly. They are still quite young organisms, and lately their nutrition and medical care have been at the highest level. The only one who causes concern is Kagami-san, but he must endure. It will just take longer to retreat." "Oh, so you were even able to pull Kagami-sama out of self-imposed seclusion?" Toussan chuckled with an incomprehensible intonation. He himself offered his participation. I shake my head negatively, and then, remembering how he met me, I frown. "By the way, he's weird." "Well, what do you want from someone the same age as the Sandame?" Toussan snorted with some amusement. "He also remembers Shodai and Naidame Hokage. And he himself was tipped for this post, but at the last moment it was outplayed. However, he is still considered the strongest of their generation, which haunts some." It's good that you managed to enlist his support. I wouldn't say support. I shake my head, remembering all the meetings, and most importantly, the repeated hints that I am not exactly who I say I am, or rather, my age does not correspond to reality. So far, no one is paying attention to this, but who knows what will happen next? That is why I hoped that Sasuke would recover earlier, which means we could go to training faster. Still, I have no desire to explain to anyone. The last time was enough, after which that training ground for the clan was never restored. I'm somehow scared to imagine what Itachi could do if he found out the truth. I know too well about his attachment to Sasuke. I'm afraid to even imagine what prompted him to do this. You're right, Toussaint nodded at my words. However, it's unlikely that he correctly understood why I shrank when talking about Kagami-san's actions, but that's even good. However, the restoration of his eyes will be a good surprise for one person, or rather four. The dreamy smile that arose from my father at these words made me smile knowingly. Still, to do something nasty to the old people and so that they would not guess about it until the last moment was not only the limit of his dreams. I agree, but why this conversation? I raise an eyebrow questioningly, watching as Toussaint instantly becomes serious. During the attack, the heiress Hyuga was kidnapped. He started, but didn't have time to finish. After all, no one warned me about this. Hinata? I interrupt Toussaint, excitedly jumping up and taking a step towards him, reproaching myself for being so immersed in my problems that I even forgot about my friends. Yes, I would have even forgotten about Gaara, but he moved into our house, and for the week that I sat without the ability to use chakra, he did not leave my side. True, after that he was still taken to Suna, but I was sure that Sasuke would be told a lot of new things after his recovery. She is all right? Sit down. Toussaint ordered me, and when I plopped back on the chair, he still answered, everything is fine with her. Your friends reacted in time, but we have a conflict with Kumo again, which this time has become more severe. I'm still not the Sandaime, and I'm not going to give up any of my subordinates. And our village is strong enough to put presumptuous idiots in their place, but the situation is turbulent. Advisors or Danzo? I asked, gradually calming down. Everything ended well, so there's no point in panicking too late? But it's still worth visiting Hinata in the near future, and at the same time taking a closer look at Neji. He couldn't remain the same after our conversation. I want to check how similar he has become to my deceased friend, and just to check how they feel and say goodbye. All three of them, and even the Sandaime, decided to join. Toussaint winced with displeasure. Old man? I'm sincerely surprised. No, I haven't believed for a long time in that bright image that once arose in me as a child. Both Sasuke and Kurama took care of this, and working in ANBU with access to secret archives also does not contribute to maintaining rose-colored glasses, but still. Did not expect. I suspect he's just bored. Toussaint winces. He was replaced in the clan by Asuma, and since I am the head of the village, he spent a little time in retirement, but he quickly got bored with it, and this is the result. He's a smart old man and he can't help but understand what confusion in high circles will lead to. I pursed my lips condemningly. Somehow I didn't expect meanness from him, apparently in vain. Life doesn't teach me anything. He understands, so he remains in the shadows, so that later he can lend a helping hand, which the young and inexperienced me will have to accept with joy. Toussaint chuckled at my words. However, it doesn't matter. Everything I wanted, I found out and said. He tells me and, turning around, is about to leave, but this doesn't suit me. Now it's my turn to ask a couple of questions. Toussaint, wait. I'm already throwing it at him in the back. Turning to me, he raises his eyebrow in surprise, but on the other hand Toussaint stopped, which means he will listen. That's good, although I can't predict his reaction to my request. I heard that Orochimaru was captured, I say carefully, looking questioningly at my father, who was interested in my words. He did not deny. However, I won't let him in, you don't even have to ask. Yes, I don't need him. I offendedly wave away suspicions of sympathy for this slimy bastard. Yes? Then why is the question asked? Toussaint asks me with a grin. Did he happen to have anything interesting in his spatial seals? I cast a test rod. No, I didn't need anything from him myself, but where else would I find Kusanagi or the higher call for Sasuke? Anko-san disappears, she doesn't have the scroll. He had a lot of things, be specific. Toussaint is already openly having fun at my attempts. Specifically, I pretend to think about the question, and then, carefully choosing my words, I continue. I'm interested in a copy of Kusanagi in the form of Chikuto and a scroll of summoning snakes. For what? The amusement immediately disappears from Toussaint's eyes. Now he demands an answer, and is not amused by my clumsy attempts to learn something new from him. Not for me, I immediately disavow suspicions. Sasuke wanted to sign an agreement with the snakes, and he had long dreamed of a normal sword. Where is the confidence that the snakes want to sign an agreement with him? Toussaint chuckled, ignoring the part of the conversation about the sword. So we'll ask them, if there was a scroll. I didn't intend to enter into controversy, but I wanted to get an answer. You will receive the sword today, but regarding the summoning, first get Fugaku's permission, Toussaint responded, turning away from me and disappeared thanks to Hiration. He clearly had no intention of listening to my gratitude, which was completely absent. I felt dissatisfied. I didn't get most of what I wanted, but on the other hand, Toussaint is right. Let Sasuke negotiate with his father. I received preliminary permission. Chapter 52. Questions are piling up. Business, and more business. But now this was not what worried the Yondaime Hokage, who stood in his office in the residence and gazed blankly at the village spread out in front of him. The youngest daughter, who has changed so much during this time, that's what he was thinking about. Naruto's request for a sword and a scroll of summoning was not something supernatural, but the question of how she could even know that the Sannin had them surfaced naturally. However, there was no answer. His daughter sacredly guarded her secrets. If Kushina had not assured him that this was their baby, and had he not accepted her protection at home, questions would have been inevitable, and all he could do was sigh sadly that he missed the moment when she grew up and no longer needed their support. It hurts, but Namikaze could only blame himself for the clearly visible coldness in their relationship. He didn't believe it, didn't accept it, didn't support it, and, as a result, Naruto makes contact, but doesn't share his experiences. On the contrary, he carefully draws the line. True, not only in front of him, Akeo also experienced this himself, only over time he became closer to her, but Minato no. The post of Hokage and constant employment did not leave him the opportunity to feel the changes immediately, and then it was too late. No, his daughter did not disgrace his name, as had happened before, but there was no longer love and warmth in her gaze. However, the worst thing was that he himself knew when these feelings disappeared from her gaze, and for this he was to blame. In general, it was not because he was very busy, although that was the case, that the Yondaime left home as Hiration. Not from questions that his own daughter or one of the rest of the household might ask. He ran from himself so as not to feel this calm, but so indifferent look and emotionless voice. Or rather, she had a lot of emotions in her voice, yet in this regard, Naruto took after his wife, but there was no warmth, which appeared every time she started talking with other members of the household. What is there? She even spoke more kindly to Fugaku's sons than to Minato. This was especially true for the youngest, whom he initially considered the most profitable match both for his daughter and for his relationship with the great clan. No, Namikaze was not a bastard who sold his own daughter for short-term gain, but he wanted to extract certain advantages from that situation. Moreover, knowing the Fugaku family, he was sure that no one would offend his child. Now he was sure that Naruto would not offend them, and few would go against Sasuke. Over the past time, the guy had risen greatly in the eyes of his clanmates, and now they were whispering that Fugaku would have a hard time, because choosing an heir between two geniuses would be difficult. Minato himself increasingly thought about the correctness of the fact that he decided to give his daughter to his friend's youngest son. No, he had no doubt that the guy treasured Naruto, but his look. It was on that day when the warmth disappeared from his daughter's gaze that ice appeared in the guy's gaze. Namikaze clearly felt that the boy was ready to bite into his throat if he only did something wrong in relation to Naruto. Moreover, even the yandame himself did not understand that Sasuke might consider him wrong, but the feeling of danger did not go away. On the contrary, they both considered each other enemies, but they could not change anything. Each valued the location of the blue-eyed Jinchuriki, who clearly would not approve of their conflict. However, now the yandame understood this especially clearly. The request voiced by his daughter rather unambiguously hinted that she was caring for the blind boy. Discontent, that's what he felt. However, he never let it escape. The essence of the ruler took over. As Hokage, he could not abandon the already resolved issue with the Uchihas, and the return to duty of the three strongest young fighters, as well as one old one, was to his advantage. Well, the fact that the one who took his daughter will return to duty with them. Sometimes you have to come to terms with the inevitable, but no one will forbid him to carefully observe that impudent person and, if something happens, intervene. Minato, stop smiling like that, the council will misunderstand you. Unexpectedly for the Hokage, Akao's malicious voice sounded. Although the CI is, of course, impressive, who are you going to kill? Akao, the blue-eyed man muttered dissatisfiedly in response, turning towards the speaker. How long have you been here? From the very beginning, so that I had time to admire both your appearance and the pantomime that followed. Uzumaki snorted and clarified. Well, what happened anyway, since you're in this state? I talked to my daughter. Tiredly rubbing the bridge of his nose, Minato responded. With Naruto? Kushina's brother raised his eyebrows in surprise. So what did my niece do again? She asked for a copy of Kusanagi and a scroll of summoning snakes. The yandame darkened even more. Snake? For what? She has toads, and they don't get along very well. The head of the Uzumaki clan exclaimed in amazement. The sword is okay. After all, it's not like the gunbai that Fugaku gave her should be swung at her, or that parody of a katana that you were concerned about. But summoning? I gave her a normal katana. Was offended by Akao Namikaze's statement. Yes, but you somehow forgot that she is almost a meter long with her 147 centimeters. Uzumaki nodded sarcastically. And terribly comfortable decorations on the handle too. While that's fine, I wonder why Naruto needs a sword if her fighting style doesn't suit it. Not for myself. The Hokage looked away and winced. For Sasuke. The red-haired man raised his eyebrow in amazement, and then, admiring the Hokage's twisted face, he clarified with amazement, Don't tell me you're jealous. Of course not. The blonde was offended by the generally truthful remark. Minato, I understand that you love Naruto, but accept it. A tired sigh escaped from Akao's chest. Sending daughters to someone else's house is always difficult, but this is the fate of every father. Believe me, I know, I've been through this myself, more than once, so stop conflicting with Sasuke, nothing good will come of it. I don't conflict. Minato growled irritably in response. It's noticeable. Uzumaki nodded in agreement. Only your glances, full of love and mutual understanding, when Naruto is not looking, are difficult not to notice. Okay, I understand you. The yandere pursed his lips and changed the topic. Why did you come? It's always like this. The red-haired man drawled mockingly and smiled sarcastically, suddenly becoming wildly similar to Minato's daughter. As soon as you say something wrong, you immediately say, "Why are you here?" Akeo, Namikaze narrowed his eyes in warning. Okay, Uzumaki nodded, grunting. I came to talk to you about the journey that my nephew is so eager to go on. More specifically, Minato hurried his interlocutor. Naruto mentioned wanting to visit Uzushio, the red-haired man told him calmly. I wanted to warn you that I will give her something that will help her get there. What's the catch? Not believing that everything was pure in the words of his wife's relative, the Hokage clarified. Only Uzumaki will be able to pass, everyone else will pass by, Akeo grinned. That's why I'm warning you, because you were planning to send Jiraiya with her, he won't be able to get through. It's clear, the yandere nodded, pursing his lips, mentally assessing what his chances were of dissuading his daughter from such a dangerous adventure. It turned out that there were none. I will be grateful to you. Minato, I understand you, but don't make this mistake. Uzumaki suddenly became serious. I'm sure you don't want your daughter to become the same again. Don't want, the man somehow wilted, and then added with frustration. But I don't know what to do. Just believe in her like Kushina does, Akeo said in the tone of a wise old man. Well, or at least like Tsunade, who no longer knows how to be happy with such a talented student. Stop. Tsunade-sama? Minato looked up at him in amazement, and received a nod. Can Jinchuriki be doctors? Their chakra is poisonous. This is where we come to the most interesting thing, which is what I originally wanted to talk to you about. The head of the Uzumaki clan nodded contentedly. Naruto's chakra is absolutely non-toxic. How? After all, even Kushina, Namikaze said, ruffling his hair in confusion. I would like to find out myself, but so far our research has stalled. The red-haired man sighed dejectedly and winced. The blood taken for analysis is no different from what it was before. Chakra, Well, chakra a separate conversation. Why? Minato's gaze had already become serious. There was not the slightest trace of past confusion, and then he quickly looked around the office and was amazed to notice the thin, barely noticeable barrier that surrounded his office. Uzumaki made sure in advance that no one overheard their conversation. And the Hokage, it seems, has pulled himself together and is ready to listen. Let's start with the fact that I identified 9 more parts that are not inherent in her pure chakra, samples of which were in our hospital. Akeo grinned contentedly. True, there are 3 bright ones and 6 rather residual ones, which I personally have never met, but nevertheless, it is difficult not to recognize them. Stop fussing. The yandere shrugged his shoulders in displeasure. Our baby has the chakra of all Bijou, Minato. The red-haired man clasped his hands together and said seriously. However, if the presence of the fox, tanuki and slug chakra can still be somehow explained, then with the rest it is deaf. Although the most important thing is that not only we could have received this data, Naruto was not immediately transferred to our personal hospital. For some time she was under the supervision of Tsunade and her students. And in general, aren't there other ways to understand something? Crap! A blow with his fist to the windowsill, which immediately crunched suspiciously, but withstood it. How untimely. I agree, but now you have no choice. She should be taken out from under their attention as soon as possible. Uzumaki's voice had lost its cheerfulness. Now he spoke coldly and firmly. We can't let anyone else find out, at least not until it comes into force. It still won't work out sooner than 2 weeks, Minato growled angrily, digging his fingers into his hair. She won't go anywhere without the Uchiha, and the operation will only take place tonight. Is this an exact date? The red-haired one specified. Yes, that's what Naruto said, Namikaze nodded grimly. The bandages cannot be removed earlier than a week after surgery. No problem, the instantly calm Uzumaki suddenly waved it off. You understand that they need to be taken away from Konoha as quickly as possible, right? Or do you want to ask questions of corpses? How? The Hokage's eyes flashed at him displeasedly. Let me know how Sasuke's condition stabilizes. I'll hand over the scrolls for transferring living organisms. Akeo answered quietly. Let's talk with Fugaku, and they will take them outside the leaf, and then hide them in a safe place. Of course, the red-eyed ones have a sea of refuges. Meanwhile, I'll send Kakashi on a mission with the team. I instantly understood what Kushina's brother, Namikaze, was leading to. The team could well be played by his clones, making the top layer a camouflage layer by using a little chakra borrowed from the children. Well, as soon as they hide behind the gate, they disperse and my student sets off to carry out the mission. Just choose a longer mission or even several, the red-haired man chuckled. And don't forget to warn Tsunade and Jiraiya. Don't worry about it, the yondaime, who somehow straightened his shoulders, grinned contentedly. The main thing is that the barrier does not sense the clones. The barrier team always includes Uzumaki, Akeo snorted. So don't worry about it. So, they decided on this. You're talking to Fugaku. I'm distracting the old people, Minato concluded contentedly, but was unable to continue speaking. Hokage-sama, it's time. A quiet knock on the office door distracted the men from the conversation, and they simply nodded to each other and headed out. They need to think about a lot, then get together, when they finally approve their plans, and begin to implement them. However, first it is worth removing the barrier that the enterprising Uzumaki managed to install before the conversation began. Chapter 53. Affairs of Bygone Days. Chapter 54. Shelter. Waking up was quite pleasant. I was lying on something soft and felt the scent of Sasuke that had long since become familiar, and someone was gently massaging my head. I wanted to purr, which was facilitated by a feeling of absolute calm and bliss. Even the memories of Aji-san, who loved experiments, did not irritate me. In general, I was happy with everything and began to willingly submit to the gentle stroking of my fiancée. It felt like we were back a year ago and sitting in our house near a lit fireplace, and Konoha was noisy outside the walls of the house. Naruto, a chuckle was heard from above. Just a few more minutes, Sasuke, she drawled quite habitually, without even thinking about what she said. Ha ha ha! A vaguely familiar laugh was heard, but the following words immediately put everything in its place. And how often does this happen to you, Ototo? Naruto is generally a sleepyhead. Another laugh. Only this time it was definitely from Sasuke, but there was no desire to react. I still clung to the state of bliss that I had upon awakening. However, it's not particularly successful, but you shouldn't get up because of this? Although I know how to wake her up. Yes? And how? I will not confuse Shusoi's voice with anything, nor will I confuse the mocking notes that are always present in it. True, he also alerted me, and I began to wake up. Naruto, I felt warm breath near my ear. Kurama hides your ramen there. Not funny, I burst out dissatisfied, and I rose from his lap, starting to rub my eyes displeasedly to the general laughter. But it worked, Sasuke chuckled in response. By the way, where are we? I looked around with interest, saw red and white fans painted here and there, and realized that the place was familiar to me. However, it was not possible to take a closer look, it was too dark. Don't tell me it's in one of your shelters. Fine, I will not. This, agreed with me to a new burst of laughter. And you really are funny, Kagami-san's calm voice sounded, and he entered the room, simultaneously letting in a little light from the corridor, which allowed me to see everything in more detail. Although I didn't see anything new, the room was very similar to the one in which the three Uchiha had been before. Only there were no lamps here, and the seals for the most part either fizzled out or were close to it. In general, if you believe my feelings, no one has been here for a very long time. Hello, Kagami-san. I completely rose from the bed, on which someone had carefully laid me, and bowed to the man. Could you tell me where we are? Well, except that in one of the Uchiha shelters. Correct clarification. The eldest man present chuckled. He was in no hurry to close the doors, allowing him to see that the Uchihas still had blindfolds on their eyes. Apparently not much time has passed since they haven't been removed yet. Well, anyway? Realizing that we could wait a long time for the continuation, I became curious. We're in Unokuni * Naruto, probably Sama? Came a rather mocking answer, and I literally felt his attention focusing on my neck. Against his will, his hand reached to his neck, but did not feel the necklace. Or maybe Senju in general? Don't panic, Akeo returned it back as soon as it accomplished what you were brought to it for. Kurama's voice sounded in my subconscious. However, you don't need it anymore. Your father's legacy is completely available to you. You gather all my brothers, and the full-fledged Sannin mode is yours, and you can heal even now. Your dark half is completely suppressed. Bad, depressed, not accepted. I was unhappy with my friend's words, but this is the best I could expect. Be glad that at least this is the case. I heard a dissatisfied snort in response. You will find Gyuki, and I am sure that he will be able to lead you to the island to the Falls of Truth, but for now, enjoy what you have already received, and yes, answer the Uchiha. It is not good to make an old man wait. He's not that old, I object. He's the same age as Sarutobi, and you even call Tsunade Byakugan. I heard a chuckle in response. Gad. I stated briefly. I'm like that. Kurama was not at all offended by my statement. So answer. Just Naruto, Kagami-san. Red's words reassured me, so I followed his advice and reacted quite calmly to Kagami-san's rather transparent hint. I don't like officialdom. Besides, you won't call Sasuke Sasuke-sama, am I right? Waila, the man chuckled. I knew those in whom the same power was felt, so I will never name, never say never. I cut off the man's ranting. I also knew both of them, even too well, and it's not for you to judge them. I just know why they went down that path. I saw how someone dear to me took it, just smiled ironically and continued. I didn't have anyone for whom I could retreat. You're right, Kagami-san nodded. It's not for me to judge him. I don't even know half of him, but this doesn't change the fact that, and I don't demand. Sasuke snorted behind me, and then stepped forward a little, literally blocking the former head of his clan from me. I never aspired to something like this, but after. There was a slight hesitation, but my fiancé managed to control his voice and continued. Afterwards I realized that it was important to me and I wouldn't let it be taken away from me again. Sparks literally began to fly between Kagami-san and my betrothed, and the air became heavy. No one was going to back down, and I didn't know whether I should interfere. After all, this is not really my conversation. However, if I don't intervene, who knows what will happen? What are you talking about? While I was tormented by thoughts, Shursui decided to intervene in the conversation, but Itachi simply remained silent. By the way, the silence of Sasuke's brother bothered me much more than the other's words. He was a very smart guy, as if he didn't find the answers. Or rather, the wrong answers, and he didn't go off the rails. After all, he's a strong shinobi, and I just like him as a person. 2 families, 2 heirs. I wasn't always a girl either. A quiet laugh escaped from my chest. Memories overwhelmed me, but I still held on, feeling the silent support of Kurama and Sasuke. They always understood me and accepted me for who I am. However, I reciprocated. It's unlikely that anyone else is able to understand and accept these fruits. Naturally, in the beginning you were a girl, Shursui remarked sarcastically, but he couldn't knock me out of my thoughts. What had been accumulating inside for so long wanted to spill out. I came to terms with what happened a long time ago. Sasuke and old man Rakuto tried their best, but that doesn't mean that I didn't remember everything. It was difficult for me, and friends whom I would never see again helped me get out. However, it is enough for me to know that they are alive. We died many times in order to walk side by side again. We walked, we rushed forward, and we retreated. Shursui, there was sadness in my voice. I didn't recognize him myself. However, we never doubted each other. She simply patted Sasuke's shoulder with her hand. It's not for you to judge us. We did what we considered necessary. That's how it was before, that's how it is now, and that's how it will be in the future. A grin that no one sees, and I continued. Besides, who gave you the opportunity to be a child at least a little, and not be afraid for your children, Kagami-san? We are not them, but we are the ones who inherited their strength and will. I never looked at it this way. The eldest of the Uchihas present suddenly agreed with me. Somehow I expected a slightly different reaction. He had demonstrated too much intransigence before. However, I'm wondering why you sound like you've been communicating with them. Well, it was like that, I grinned, remembering how our meeting ended and how 2 friends ended up next to each other. I remembered Madara's last words, what he said to Hashirama. They sounded like an alarm bell in my head, and then I realized that Sasuke was the same, just we initially had a slightly different fate. As I told Kagami-san, I didn't have anyone for whom I could give up what I considered the most precious thing in my life. The Uchiha has always been more than a brother to me. I've known you both for a long time, since birth, but for some reason it only showed up now. I looked at the man and realized that he did not intend to retreat, and Itachi and Shursui were also tense. It seems that some answers will have to be given now. We are part of the world, and the world part of us, Sasuke said calmly, and grabbing my hand, dragged me out, absolutely not caring that he didn't see anything. However, he doesn't need this. I sense too well that he has begun to process natural energy, albeit in small quantities, but this is apparently enough to navigate the shelter. I will take Naruto to the heart of the shelter. We still need to reactivate the protection and feed the storage tanks. Do you have enough chakra? Shursui remarked sarcastically, but Kagami-san just silently let him pass by. Apparently he himself understood that some questions should not be answered. I've walked the path of the Sannin, Shursui-san. Mine won't be enough. I'll just absorb the natural one and, after processing, give it to the press, and Sasuke won't be left out, right? I glanced at my beloved holding my hand. PF, came the answer. Well, that's what I'm talking about, I agreed. So you don't have to worry. I have enough chakra, and the Kyuubi is always with me. Your truth, Shursui agreed with me, and we continued our way to the door. And yet you did not answer. Itachi's words came back to us. Sometimes ignorance is better than knowledge, and I-san, Sasuke gave the answer, not me. It is enough for you to know that from birth I was Uchiha Sasuke, Ototo Uchiha Itachi, and the youngest son of Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Mikoto. Sasuke. I looked at him in alarm, perfectly feeling how the hand squeezing my fingers tensed. I'm fine, let's go. The alien hand relaxed, but still held me tenaciously, literally pulling me further and slamming the door until we were asked new questions. Better tell me what you were looking for on your neck. Aji-san gave me Rakuto's necklace. Although not for long, I responded phlegmatically. My emotions subsided. I felt squeezed like a lemon. so I would get to Yuzashio, although unaccompanied. Clear, a short nod. Apparently I wasn't the only one who felt the emotional emptiness. What do we do? They'll ask you directly, I quietly clarified, my betrothed obediently snapped, following and Sasuke. I decided not to ask any more questions. I felt his condition too well. Silently I squeezed his hand, showing that I was nearby. He was not alone. Only 3 days passed after the operation that I helped carry out for the Uchihas. To my joy, the transplantation was successful and rejection did not occur not only on the first day, but also on the second and third. Well, on the fourth day there was no longer any need to be afraid of this. After all, the shinobi's body usually rejects foreign organs immediately, at most after a day or two, and if he survived these most difficult days, then there should have been no further problems. True, one way or another, I still tried to spend all my free time with Sasuke, even if not in the original, but as a clone, but still I tried not to leave him alone, well, except for the other blinded shinobi. Nariko didn't like this too much, because she wanted to go with me, but she couldn't do anything, nor could she get permission to gain access to other people's secrets. Okay. Thoughts are thoughts, but I have to hurry to the Uchi house, so we get dressed at a pace. Naruto, Aji-san wants to see you. There was a knock on the door of my room, and Enai-san's calm voice almost took me by surprise, but, on the other hand, he didn't come in, and the clone I created ended up helping me put on the kimono. And I would advise you to hurry up, because he looked serious. Thank you, Nei-san! I shouted and decided not to bother with my hair. After all, Aji-san doesn't really like to wait. A couple of seconds, and I just pulled them into a high ponytail and secured the clone with a ribbon. Having made sure in the mirror that I look decent, I go to the living room, where my guest sits, drinking tea. You're fast. Aji-san puts down his cup of tea and says mockingly. By the way, where are you going to look so elegant? He still won't see. The main thing is that I will see, I mutter, although I myself am wildly tense. He came too unexpectedly and obviously for a reason. What did you want, Aji-san? Don't want to wait. He grinned. Okay, let's go. The words get stuck in my throat. One glance at Aji-san is enough for me to fall silent. We will go to the clan treasury, so be silent and don't touch anything. The voice was calm, but the look did not have the warmth I was accustomed to. The thing I want to give you, even I couldn't put it on. Eh? I blinked in surprise, but I didn't dare ask the question, at least not out loud. Kurama? I don't know, but I can assume that this is connected with my father, was the answer instantly. It's not for nothing that the Uzumaki and Senju clans were called related. You can be called two branches of one clan. How is that? I blink in amazement, at the same time obediently allowing Aji-san to grab my hand and move me from the house to the quarter. True, I was a little mistaken in my assumptions, and we immediately appeared in some room protected by barriers so that if Baijudama hit it, it would remain intact, and no matter where the blow would take place, it was even more fortified from the inside. By the way, where are we anyway? And most importantly, is there any other way to get here without using Shunshin? The Uzumaki clan existed back in the days when my father walked the earth. Saiken suddenly gurgled while I looked around with interest at the room in which I appeared. They were no weaker than Hagoromo, but unlike them, they never liked to fight, a rather peaceful and cheerful clan for shinobi, although strong, very strong. And he was one of the first to support his youngest son. Kurama continued for the slug. The Senju formed later, but still, after a generation, one of the children of the main branch of each of the clans goes to the main branch of the other. This is how Mito became Hashirama's wife. Wasn't she the guarantor of Yuzashio's alliance with Konoha? I was surprised, remembering the story that Iruka had vigorously drummed into me at one time, and even after that I didn't hear what the bijou told me. However, Having looked through the books that were in the home library, I also didn't find anything like that, and Sasuke, if he had found out such information, would have shared it. Let's go. I was distracted from receiving quite interesting information by the voice of Aji-san, who, having folded about 100 seals vaguely familiar to me, poured chakra into the seal that appeared on one of the walls. Another couple of seconds, and part of the wall moves away, revealing to my eyes steep steps down. I obediently follow the first Aji-san, who began to descend. "Don't be an idiot!" Kurama snorts, distracting me from looking at the walls, which began to glow with a soft, muted light as we advanced. Who will give it to not even a permanent, but an elected head of someone else's village? Stop! Then it turns out? I was confused, instantly forgetting to count the steps I was walking on. I still got lost on the second 100. Yuzusho renewed his alliance with the Senju through marriage, but in Leaf they simply spread other information. The fox chuckled. Was it necessary to somehow explain the presence of allies? True, they forgot to say that Konoha did not have Uzumaki allies, only the Senju had them. If the Forest clan had not died at the end of your third war, the red-haired clan would not have even interfered in this matter and would not have paid with almost complete destruction. And Bie-chan? I was indignant, momentarily distracted by the fact that we had finally reached the last step and were now walking along a corridor that was strikingly reminiscent of Orochimaru's hideout. Only there was no such protection on the walls, and even the doors. Without the key, I would not have dared to open them, even though the Uzumaki, and due to the fact that my Kachan was a member of this clan, could consider it a purebred, and my furry friend contributed to the awakening of clan characteristics. Tsunade is alone. She would be swaddled like a baby and dragged to Yuzusho, especially since now it's her turn to give someone to the Uzumaki clan. It sounded rather gloating. However, she is the only member of the Senju clan, moreover chapter. In general, for the first time in a couple of 100 years, the agreement will not be respected, moreover, the awakening of the father's legacy. Different sexes and ready to unite. The next second the fox's tone became completely different. Shame on my head, my carrier, and playing tricks with the Uchiha. Okay, this is clear. I tried to distract Red from the lamentations that had already set my teeth on edge. Even in that world he annoyed me with his whining about this, but here it's the same. What's wrong with Kachan? She also had to confirm the alliance of the clans? Yes and no. Kurama responded calmly. How is that? I was amazed. The candidate to be sent to Yuzusho has died, Red said mockingly. Mito was torn and torn then, because she herself insisted that the Senju candidate be accompanied only by the Senju, and the Uzumaki should be met near the coastal city. In general, the Senju then lost more than a dozen not the weakest shinobi and, most importantly, did not find any traces. What about Nawaki? I carefully clarify, knowing full well that Kurama is now telling me memories of himself from this world, and not from the past, although the chance that everything was the same there was quite high. A brat who was too hot and couldn't imagine himself outside of Konoha. But now I caught contempt in his tone. He was too limited, but you're right, in theory, he was the one who should have been sent to you, but Mito didn't allow it. She wanted to make him the heir and sent him. Although you still don't know him, you'll have enough information about what she found, who replace him, even if he never reached his destination, and Kushina was supposed to become a vessel for me and a wife for Mito's grandson. Something went wrong. It's somehow uncomfortable to understand that if circumstances had not worked out differently, I would have been a Senju if I had been born at all. Both died earlier, Kurama said sarcastically. One ran into a trap, even the presence of Orochimaru nearby did not save him, and the second was killed by someone from the inner circle. It was then that Mito and Danzo fell out with Hiruzen. Well, after that the senju themselves practically disappeared, as did Yuzashio. Not all, I object with displeasure, simultaneously turning after Aji-san, who was leading us in a very confusing way. Although this is all about protective seals, if I understand correctly, the complex itself is built like a huge seal. Moreover, if I correctly counted the turns and steps, it is protective, but what kind? I don't have an answer, and it's unlikely that one will appear. I'll leave the clan too soon. Not all. My furry friend agreed with me. However, the senju only has Tsunade left, who cannot become a Keio's wife, much less Kushina. And what does Aji-san and Kachan have to do with it? I was surprised. They, apart from their children, are the only members of the ruling branch. My furry friend explained, sighing tiredly. However, you are too young for Tsunade, not to mention the only guy left among the children is your brother Aoi. Well, still your youngest, but they are generally babies. In general, take on the obligations of two clans no one. Although, I would see how your brother reacted to the news that he would have to marry Tsunadeheim. Wait, doesn't Aji-san have any sons? I was truly surprised. By the way, my memory is also silent about this, which means I haven't met them before. He had them before the destruction of Yuzashio. Kurama responded and fell silent. Well, I didn't know what to say. Still, I didn't expect to learn so much in one conversation. I need to think about this information, and I'm not sure it's worth sharing with Sasuke. The Uchiha clan has nothing to do with it, and even though I treat them well, there is information that is classified for internal use. And this is exactly that. I think I should hold her back, and anyway, I shouldn't be in her loop. Correct thoughts? Approved Red. These bastards don't need to know some details. Kurama, when will you calm down? I groaned tiredly, but I didn't have time to hear the answer. Aji-san abruptly stopped near one of the many doors, which was an exact copy of those we passed next to. We came, he calmly said, and cut his palm, touching exactly the middle of the door. Nothing happened for a couple of seconds, and then the door swung open in front of us. Come in. Eh? With some timidity, I followed Aji-san to freeze on the threshold, realizing that the room, 5 by 7 meters, was empty, well, except for a rather high cabinet at the very end. On the pedestal Aji-san nodded in that direction, and I, drawn by curiosity, came closer to see a necklace of 6 red magatama. Yes, I saw these at Rakudo's during our meeting, only these were, how should I say, smaller. No, more elegant. Take them, Aji-san commanded, without even trying to move away from the door and follow me. Kurama? I'll clarify carefully. Take it you can. The answer came instantly, and without hesitation, I extended my hand to take this necklace. As soon as I touched the magatama, which had a bloody shine, I felt the cold coming from them and a sharp outflow of chakra. And okay, it would be only mine, but it was also the chakra of all the biju contained within me, even the sleeping ones. It's good that not so much was pumped out of them, but for a moment the Senin's cloak that appeared on me was a surprise, as was the reserve that had become completely empty. However, the strangeness did not end there. The necklace, which had been icy just a few seconds ago, suddenly became warm, and a kind of joy wafted from it. You can calmly take it and put it on, it's no longer dangerous. This red-haired bastard joyfully told me. Are you saying that it used to be dangerous? I asked affectionately. Well, why do you think Akeo didn't leave the door? Kurama remarked sarcastically. So this is what they really look like. The words of Aji-san, who peeled himself away from the door and came closer to me, did not give me a decent answer to this intriguer. You can put them on, they're yours. Aji-san, huh? I tried to ask a question. This is universal admission to Yuzashio. Any barrier will let you through with it. Akeoaji interrupted me in a calm voice. However, it does not accept everyone, although I suspected that the reason here lies in some characteristics of the chakra. I see. I was not mistaken. Wait, Aji-san, did you conduct experiments on me? I was indignant, extracting the main thing from what was said. How could you think that? Akeoaji was amazed. Besides, I promised Minato that I would give you something that would help you get through to the heart of our destroyed village. The necklace, which is the key to all the clan barriers, is the best option, don't you think? No, if I had time, I would apply a key seal to you, but this requires a week of painstaking work and more than 6 months of preparation on the part of both the person applying it and the one to whom it is applied. Agree, we don't have it. And still, I'm unhappy, but I obediently put the necklace around my neck, only to lose consciousness from the pain after a couple of moments. The second way is to let the necklace apply it, then it happens instantly. These were the last words that my consciousness, plunging into darkness, could still make out. Chapter 55. Failed attempt at pressure. Naruto-chan, my cousin is no longer a little boy and can eat by himself, Shursui told me softly, but with some reproach. However, I don't blame him. We've been here for the 3rd day, and every morning starts the same way. I feed Sasuke with chopsticks. No, he can eat himself, but who would refuse the opportunity to tease his relatives with impunity? Kagami-san, on the contrary, is having fun, understanding perfectly well what caused such tenderness, and we do not strive to make our relationship public. It's just that Shursui and Itachi are trying not to leave us alone. In general, we got enough, so we have a blast, although I immediately say, it's more convenient for me to eat myself. After all, Sasuke's bandage hasn't been removed yet. This will happen only tonight, and his accuracy is lame. It's quite tiresome to keep track of where he pokes his sticks at me. However, I am ready to endure it. My fiancé's cousin and brother react to this too interestingly, and it helps to avoid unnecessary conversations. Otherwise, Itachi had already walked a countless number of times with the clear intention of talking to me, but, having stumbled upon the two of us, he immediately forgot all the questions. I can, but why? Sasuke stated calmly, deftly picking up a piece of fish from the plate and bringing it to my mouth. Sasuke, he's just jealous, I said sarcastically, seeing perfectly well that the others were trying not to look in our direction. However, it's their own fault, because there's no other way to avoid the questions. Naruto, Kagami-san interrupted the already looming skirmish. Yes? I instantly became serious, looking towards Uchiha Sr. To be honest, I was afraid of him. I knew too much and understood even more. However, he is not my enemy, but I can't relax next to him. The Irionans, who were supposed to remove the bandages from us, are late, Kagami-san told me quietly. However, I was told that you are quite competent for this. Won't you check? Fine, I agreed, realizing that I couldn't refuse, and what's the point? Then I'll see Shursui-san and Itachi-san after breakfast, you after dinner. I chuckled and added sarcastically, well, Sasuke too in the evening. I have already recovered. My fiancé was indignant. That's why you'll have to wait until evening, I snapped. Or do you think that I don't know that you took off the bandage yesterday? At least consult me. What would happen if you did this in sunlight? Well, I'm not completely an idiot, Sasuke muttered dissatisfiedly. Yes? And the fact that the bandages are coated with fuin, which does not allow light to pass through, and therefore you have no way to understand whether you are in a well-lit place or in a semi-dark one. I started to get indignant. Well, it all worked out, my betrothed shrugged, whom I suddenly wanted to strangle. Besides, you set the brightness of the lighting in front of me, and I just know that there is partial shade everywhere. You could at least call me, I sighed doomedly, knowing full well that he doesn't feel guilty about himself, which means there's no point in putting pressure on his consciousness. He'll simply ignore it. Will you take it off now? He asked me a question, which only confirmed that they were not listening to me. No! I growled, and with a sharp movement I put my hand on his eyes. A short skin showed that yesterday's prank was not in vain for him, and his eyes were still overly sensitive. That is why, without a twinge of conscience, I changed the structure of the seals on the bandage. Now he won't take it off without my desire. This should have been done a long time ago. Now you definitely can't get rid of it without my permission. Hey! Sasuke, who had not expected such a thing, was sincerely indignant. Humble yourself, Ototo, Itachi intervened in our squabble. Firstly, she is right, and secondly, see point 1. Nei-san. My betrothed jumped up indignantly in his direction. Your eyes are still too sensitive. This will be a lesson for you. I chuckled and quickly rose to my feet, briefly throwing over my shoulder to the others. Shursoi-san, Itachi-san, when you are free, find me. I will be in the training room. We are already free, the boys told me in unison. Okay, then let's go to the infirmary, she smiled contentedly, referring to the room in which we woke up and which turned out to be far from the only one. In general, the shelter turned out to be huge and well thought out. It was clearly made during the heyday of the Uchiha clan, and it was designed for 200 people, and not for 5 travelers. The expenditure of chakra to maintain its vital activity was appropriate. Fortunately, Kurama and the rest of the waking bija helped to nourish the drives. Otherwise, I would have turned into stone from passing through such an amount of natural energy, although I still had to treat the chakra channels for another day, because they could barely withstand the amount of chakra that was lost in a short period of time. Well, I was too lazy to stand for a couple of days, so I took a risk. What can I do? It was later that I realized how stupid I had been, but it was already too late to do anything. Whatever you say, Naruto, Itachi's calm voice came from behind me, and without even turning around, I realized that they also got up and followed me out. It seems that I have driven myself into a trap, because I will have to be left alone with them, and who knows how many questions they will ask me? Why are you panicking? Kurama's growling voice suddenly rang out. They still won't be able to make you talk. You're right, I agreed, instantly calming down. After all, Red is right, they won't be able to force me to speak. Even Tsukuyomi does not take the sage who has passed the path. I wouldn't be so categorical. A mocking snort was heard from Shikaku. But you will definitely win in willpower. This is not bad, I said, not at all offended by Tanuki's remark, and realizing that I had already approached the right room, added, Now don't interfere. After all, the eyes are a delicate organ. Especially the Uchihas. Kurama added displeasedly to my words, but I decided to ignore him. No, I understand why he doesn't like them, but that doesn't change the fact that I didn't see anything bad from them. At one time, their patrols in that world even saved me while they were there. Who is first? Hastily cutting off my last thought, I asked the guys, entering the infirmary and approaching a small table on which the necessary ointments lay and special drops for the eyes were placed. Itachi was the first to volunteer, to my surprise. I thought that he would want to talk to me alone, so he would become the second. Well, I was mistaken, who doesn't? However, I quickly pulled myself together and, simply taking him by the arm, led him to a chair. Sit down, it will be more comfortable for me. Letting him feel for the seat, I explained. Fine, he nodded in agreement, and he obediently sat down, and I simply put my hand over his eyes, habitually activating the diagnostic jutsu. A couple of seconds, and I changed it to medicinal. No, his eyes were fine, at least better than I had recently seen on Sasuke, but I decided it was worth playing it safe a little. That's all. I removed my hand and began to remove the bandage. You shouldn't use the Sharingan until tomorrow. She went to the table and took the jars with drops that had been placed there in advance. I didn't know their composition, more precisely I knew, but very approximately, but I knew that they were used after a long time of using dojutsu. You know how to use the drops. Yes, Itachi agreed with me, squinting heavily and constantly blinking out of habit. And I also hoped that the dim light of the infirmary would not cause them any problems. Apparently, they had been wearing bandages for too long and had become unaccustomed to the light. Next, I said, nodding, looking suggestively at my betrothed brother, who was in no hurry to get up. Certainly. Itachi smoothly stood up, and Shursui took his place, and I literally felt his attentive gaze on the back of my head, directed at my hands. No, of course, I understand that the golden color of the technique looks unusual, but why look so carefully? I'm a shinobi, and it's in my blood to want to get rid of obsessive attention. That's all. Having finished the check and treatment, I removed the bandage from Shursui, only to be faced with a scarlet gaze in the next moment, and feel myself being thrown into my own subconscious. I felt that I could resist the influence, but I didn't know how it would affect cousin Sasuke, so I didn't resist, only adjusting the point of appearance through an effort of will. So, for example, I fell on Kurama's head, literally, but I think he's not offended. Naruto, come out, we just want to talk. Less than a minute passed before Shursui and Itachi entered the large, darkened hall in front of the open cage. These idiots decided to put a double genjutsu on me? And I told you not to trust the Uchiha's, Kurama declared in a thunderous voice, and the semi-dark hall suddenly ceased to be like that, or rather, the first to flash were specially closed scarlet eyes, and only then all the fur, 9 tails loomed behind his back in a terrible grin. At the same time a monstrous ki hit the receptors, and both of my uninvited guests tensed, and Mangekyo flashed in his eyes. It looks like they were going to fight to the end, simultaneously pulling the innocent me out of someone's vile clutches. Kurama, stop it! I rolled off his head onto his nose and from there jumped onto the floor, and then turned to the even more tense Shursui and Itachi. As I thought, you still couldn't resist. Impudent bug, Red snorted, but calmed down and again put his head on his crossed paws, but did not stop watching. Who are you? Itachi asked coldly immediately after Kurama stopped emitting chakra and seemed to calm down, although he did not change his posture, continuing to glare at us with an attentive gaze. Who am I? I was surprised and, looking around myself, said I am Naruto Uzumaki Itachi-san. Stupid, sounded from Red, and I indignantly turned to him, putting my hands on my hips and was about to start making a scandal, when he added, your appearance. Seeing that I still didn't understand anything, he gave another hint, your body is 13. Exactly. I slammed my fist on my open palm, now understanding what bothered Itachi. Still, in my subconscious, I look my real age, and the clothes I'm wearing are noticeable. I'm an ANBU. I was. What exactly? Now Shursui intervened in our conversation, and I felt how he was trying to influence the open lock of the cage. She sighed tiredly. That's why he's itching? I'm tired of eliminating the consequences of overvoltage. Here I look like I'm used to. I smiled sadly and went out through the bars of the cage to the guys ready to attack. Shursui-san, you shouldn't try to close the seal. It can't be done without the key. Are you used to it? Itachi clarified gloomily. It seems that last time I hinted quite transparently that this is not my first life. I looked condescendingly at the guys standing in front of me. Consider this a side effect. It's still difficult to remain the same when you remember at least one past life, and most importantly, death. I saw doubt in someone else's eyes and sighed heavily. Don't believe me? No, they both responded briefly, but fairly honestly. Well, at least they stopped influencing the seal, completely switching their attention to me. Well, let them try, in my subconscious and with the feeding of 3 bijou, plus natural chakra. In general, let them try. Did you know that Madara did not die during the battle in the Valley of the End? I clarified, smiling slyly. His body disappeared from Tobirama Senju's laboratory the next day. He died much later, on the 23rd of March to be precise *, and his soul and strength went into the baby. By the way, you both know his heir well. What? Itachi was surprised. Are you talking about Sasuke? Shursui frowned, instantly comparing the dates ***. Then who are you? I am his rival and most faithful ally. I smiled bitterly. I am the one who is closest to him, who knows and accepts the real him. I am his complete opposite, I am his reflection. I don't understand you, Itachi said tensely. But I shouldn't, I shook my head. I know that I am in your illusion, you can ask, but I will only answer one question from everyone. I don't recommend insisting. I can easily remove the impact. Who are you? After some time, he decided to ask Shursui first. You already asked, but okay, I'll answer. I shook my head disapprovingly, but it's their choice. I am Uzumaki Naruto, daughter of Uzumaki Kushina and Minato Namikaze, known as Akai Shishio no Habanero and Yandame Hokage, aka Yellow Lightning of Konoha. I answered your question? Yes, cousin Sasuke nodded and retreated dissatisfied, giving Itachi a chance to speak. Why do you? There was a moment's hesitation, and little brother Sasuke corrected himself. Have you changed that much? We were on death's door, I responded absolutely honestly, missing the point that it was we from that world who found ourselves on the edge, and not the children of this. They were already dead at that time. However, we both wanted to live, and we survived, even if the price was, let there be mental maturation. I smiled widely and carefully got rid of other people's influence in order to push them out of my subconscious with the words, You've exhausted your attempts, it's time to go back.